She stood at the front door clutching the handles of her old worn-out bag, her fingers trembling as she rang the bell. Sophia had never imagined her life would come to this, working as a maid in a wealthy man's house. Once, she had dreams of finishing college, starting her own small bakery, and living a simple life in the Canadian town where she was born. But life had a way of testing her strength. Her father's sudden illness had drained the family savings, and with her mother already gone, the responsibility of caring for him fell squarely on her shoulders. She swallowed her pride that day, hoping only for a chance to earn enough money to keep the lights on at home. When the door opened, she found herself standing face to face with Ethan, a man whose presence carried both power and distance. He was known in town as a successful businessman, someone who had built his empire from nothing. He eyed her carefully, as if measuring not just her appearance but her spirit. "You're here for the job?" he asked, his voice calm yet guarded. Sophia nodded quickly, trying to hide the nervousness in her chest. Ethan simply stepped aside and let her in. The house was massive, everything polished and grand, so different from her tiny rented apartment. Sophia felt small as she walked through the hallways, but she told herself she was here for one reason only, to survive. She worked quietly, scrubbing floors, dusting shelves, and washing dishes. Ethan hardly spoke to her at first, treating her presence as if she were just another part of the furniture. But over time, he began to notice little things: how carefully she folded his shirts, how she hummed softly while she worked, and how her tired eyes still carried a spark of dignity. One evening, while cleaning the living room, Sophia wore a red dress. It wasn't expensive, just a simple hand-me-down from her cousin, but it was the only dress she owned that wasn't faded or torn. She had worn it because her father had reminded her earlier that day, "Don't forget, Sophia, even when life is cruel, don't lose yourself. Wear something that reminds you you're still you." That red dress became her reminder that beneath all the hardship, she was more than her struggles. When Ethan saw her that night, he froze. He had always seen her as the maid, but in that moment, the red dress transformed her into someone else, a woman with a story, with a life, with dreams that had been buried by circumstances. Something stirred inside him, a mix of respect and curiosity. "Why that dress?" he asked suddenly, surprising even himself. Sophia hesitated but then told him the truth, about her father's illness, about the bills piling up, about how she worked every hour she could just to keep him alive. Her voice shook, but she didn't cry. She had cried too many times alone at night to show her weakness now. Ethan listened quietly, his usual stoic expression softening in ways she had never seen before. Over the next few weeks, things began to change. Ethan started leaving her small notes of encouragement, sometimes slipping an extra meal into the kitchen when he noticed she hadn't eaten. He found himself drawn to her strength, the kind of strength that didn't come from wealth or power but from carrying pain with grace. And Sophia, though careful not to expect anything, noticed how his presence felt different. The turning point came one snowy evening. Sophia's father's health had worsened, and she rushed home after finishing her work. Hours later, Ethan found himself driving to her neighborhood, unsure why but unable to shake the thought of her. He arrived at the small apartment and saw Sophia sitting by her father's bedside, holding his hand, whispering softly that everything would be okay. For the first time, Ethan saw the depth of her love and the quiet sacrifices she made. He realized then how blind he had been. He had always measured people by success, by what they had achieved. But Sophia taught him that true worth was in kindness, resilience, and the ability to love without expecting anything in return. A few months later, her father's health stabilized thanks to better treatment Ethan had quietly paid for without telling her. When she found out, tears filled her eyes, but not from pity. It was gratitude mixed with the shock that someone had cared when she least expected it. Sophia never stopped working, never stopped fighting for her dignity. But Ethan no longer saw her as the maid. He saw her as the woman in the red dress who had unknowingly changed the way he looked at life. Their story wasn't about wealth or status, it was about how two lives from different worlds could meet in the quiet spaces of kindness and transform each other forever. By the end, the red dress was no longer just a piece of fabric. It was a symbol of hope, courage, and the reminder that sometimes, the smallest things can change everything. And in that house where she had once walked in trembling, Sophia now stood tall, not as a maid, but as someone who had taught a powerful man what it truly meant to be human.